Hey, I'm Shelby, and I'm going to be talking about how to deal with pushy evangelicals when they start preaching to you and you are not ready for that. You know, everyone's different, and everybody's deconstruction has led them to a different place. Me personally, when I am approached by somebody who's trying to preach to me, I don't want to hear it. I'm over it. I've heard it all. There's a time and place for that, and having it sprung on me starts to activate my body. I start getting short of breath, getting nervous, anxious in my chest, and it can be hard to diffuse that sort of situation when you're not prepared for your body to react that way and they're just like pummeling you with questions or accusations or whatever. This happened to me at work once. I used to work in a wood shop, and one of the warehouse guys came in, and I had been showing my fellow carpenters a scene from the old show Bible Man. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but it was basically Batman, but it was Bible Man, and he had a lightsaber. It's pretty cool actually, but it's super evangelical. You know, it was the only thing I was really allowed to watch was that sort of show. Like no Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings was iffy, but like Bible Man, Veggie Tales, that sort of thing. So anyway, I was showing a clip to my carpenter friends, and warehouse guy comes in and he goes, "Oh, what's that? I didn't know you were a Christian." And I said, "Oh, actually, I'm not a Christian, but this was something I used to watch." And he heard that, man, and that was it. He started questioning me and pushing on me. And first of all, we're at work, so I'm like, this is not very professional. I don't want to be talking about this at this deep of a level at work. You know, I don't mind like light questions or, you know, clearly I don't mind showing them this clip on the screen. I wasn't making fun of it. I was just showing them what I used to watch. But this guy wanted to go deep in the middle of the workday. And right off the bat, I said, "Hey man, I'm not really comfortable talking about this." So I tried to establish a boundary, but it was not enough. And he pushed right through that boundary and kept asking me questions like, "Why'd you leave? Like, why don't you believe anymore?" And I really should have just set up firmer boundaries like, "Hey man, I don't want to talk about this. Please leave me alone," whatever. But I was getting really anxious and nervous, and I didn't react how I would have wanted to. So I just started answering his questions, one of which being, "Why'd you leave?" And I said, which I don't even know if this is true for myself, but I said, "Well, I couldn't reconcile the idea of an all loving God with the amount of suffering we have in the world. No problem of suffering stuff." And he said, "Well, that's part of it, man. Like that's the whole thing." Here's where the idea that deconstructed people are rogue sleeper agents comes into play. We've heard all of this. We grew up learning about it. There's nothing new that these people can tell us. That's kind of a superpower for us. And when you think of it that way, it can be very empowering. Chances are, I know those arguments better than the average person on the street, the average warehouse guy who's coming up to me and questioning me about faith. Because I was in it very deep and I studied all that stuff. I was an extremely passionate believer. And now that I've escaped the matrix, I haven't lost all that knowledge. It's still up here. So I know exactly what they're going to say. I know how they think. I know what they believe. I know all the talking points they've been trained to just throw out at people. But the problem is when your body gets activated and your nervous system starts flaring up, a lot of that goes out the window and a flight or freeze response might kick in and you start to panic. It's happened to me. So I think it's good to be prepared for those situations. So when your body starts to say, "Hey, I don't feel safe right now," you know how to deal with it, how to calm yourself down, how to diffuse the situation and set up firm boundaries, but set up boundaries with patience and empathy. Because we have to remember that these people are trained to do this. Like witnessing, giving their testimony, questioning, apologetics, it's all just rigorously trained into believers. Most believers. People who especially grew up in it or go to church a lot, they're trained to do this and it's part of the indoctrination. So you have to, with empathy, understand that they think they're doing a good thing. Like they want to help you. They want to save your soul so you don't suffer in hell. And they think that church is like this amazing thing, and for some people it is. But what they don't understand in that moment is that they're dehumanizing you by just making you a random project for them to fix. They're not considering how you might react, what your experiences were with it, if you've had experience. And so they just bowl over all of that and they don't consider your experience. So you have to consider it for yourself ahead of time so you can be prepared. There are certain phrases that we can kind of throw out to help ourselves diffuse a situation. One of which being, my theology is debatable, my experience is not. That's a good one because what we went through in religion is not up for debate. It happened to us, it affected us the way it did, and now we have to live with that. And they cannot argue with our experience. Of course, theology is always incredibly subjective, and you can get into apologetics if you feel up to it, but you don't have to. You can lean on simply your experience, and you don't have to justify it any farther than that. Now, again, these people are trying to help you. So what we can do when we want to diffuse a situation like that is to tap into their empathy. And when they say something that activates our nervous system, we can be truthful. So we can just say, hey, the way you said that or what you just said, I felt that in my body. I'm just gonna soak that in for a second. And that immediately pauses the conversation, makes them realize that the things they say have an effect on other people. And they can have a negative effect that makes other people feel bad. And I don't think that's what they want. You know, some aggressive like street preachers, like that's what they're going for. They want to get you riled up. But I think the average person who's just trying to have a conversation with you and like share the light of Jesus doesn't want to hurt you. And in being truthful, we rehumanize ourselves against the dehumanization that they've inflicted on us. We inform them that we're people, and we have experiences, and we have feelings, and the things that you say can affect us, especially if we've been negatively affected by it in the past. Now, setting up boundaries is really hard, and boundary work is something that deconstructed people struggle with, especially because there weren't really boundaries in our community besides the boundaries around the high control, like the broad boundaries of you have to stay within this circle. High control environments are power structures in which most people don't have a lot of autonomy. You have to be constantly laying your life out for all to see, all your secrets, your sins, they're not for you to keep. Ultimately, there is no boundary because God sees all. So it's in principle impossible to set up a final boundary for yourself. So in a lot of ways, we're not used to setting up boundaries for people. So doing that in the middle of one of these conversations is really tough, especially if you're getting activated, like I said. But don't ever feel obligated to play into what they're saying. You can say, I don't want to talk about this and you need to leave me alone right now. You're completely justified in doing that. And if you do want to have a dialogue with this person, something like, hey, I don't want to talk about this right now. I wasn't really prepared, but maybe we could like text each other or email or something where I feel a little bit safer. And again, just be honest about how you're feeling. There are also certain situations where just saying the truth completely dismantles their argument or what they're trying to throw at you. For example, I was in a conversation with a friend, just sprung into this conversation. I was talking about my struggles with mental health. And this friend, they genuinely care about me. And they said, I think you have a spiritual hole, like a God-sized hole. And I said, you know what? I actually agree with you. I think I do have a spiritual deficit, and I'm working really hard to make up for that. For evangelicals, that sort of thing would be really weird to hear because they are taught that Christianity has a monopoly on spirituality, that you can't achieve spirituality without God, without Jesus. So there's no way to do it secularly, which of course is a lie. And if you're just honest about what they're accusing you of, it's extremely freeing. You can go into any conversation and just be honest the whole time, and it's a lot harder for them to hurt you or scare you or shock you. I can be honest and say I have a spiritual deficit because I wasn't given the tools to achieve spirituality without Christianity, but now I'm working to rebuild them. That doesn't mean that Christianity is true. You're not admitting to anything besides the fact that leaving religion is hard and you lost some things. That doesn't mean that the religion is true. Now, religion, and especially Christianity, is very coddled in my country, the United States. So religious people often feel extremely entitled to say whatever they want, however they want to say it, wherever they want to say it. And free speech is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Free expression is important. That doesn't mean that speech is without consequence. And if the consequence of an evangelical pushing through your boundaries when you don't want them to, and attacking you with ideas that are hurting you, you have the right to make the consequence that they don't get to be in your life anymore. You can shut that door and protect yourself. But if you can, I do encourage you to kill them with kindness. They're always told the lie that everybody on the outside is angry, sinful, have no morals. So the more that you can show them that that's not true, the more you win, the more power you take back for yourself. And you might help them deconstruct one day if they've seen you as an example of what it actually could be like, not the lie that they were given. If you have any stories to share when an evangelical has pushed too far and made you feel uncomfortable, I'd love to hear it. If you're struggling with this, let me know. I'd also love to talk to you. So, best of luck. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.